With a smug smile and a teasing look, she points at him, urging him to continue with one of his typical outbursts. Honestly, she can't bear the idea that he's her childhood friend. In that moment, something deep inside him changed, as if a part of his soul broke. Takayashiki Rua isn't just any girl. She's one of the hottest idols right now. Plus, she's the granddaughter of Takayashiki Tao, the head of the Taken Group, which is Japan's leading corporate powerhouse, giving her wealth and influence that far exceed those of ordinary people. In simpler terms, she's like a real-life princess. On the flip side, our main character, Suzuki Kazuma, is just an average guy. He's dull and unremarkable, with no friends at all, and most importantly, he's single. He's what you'd call a loner, sitting at the very bottom of the social ladder. His only notable trait and achievement in life is being Rua's childhood friend. Believe it or not, he spent his entire life in Rua's shadow, almost like he was Igor or something. But that's never what he wanted. He doesn't aspire to be special like Rua. All he ever wanted was something simple, a genuine connection, friends, a girlfriend, and a normal life. However, he didn't just come to this realization out of nowhere. He actually tried to share those feelings with her. Unfortunately, it took a turn for the worse. With venom in her voice, she asked if he was stupid, insisting he should know his place as the worthless, gloomy loser he is, with his only value in life being her childhood friend. Nothing more, nothing less. That role alone drained all his life points, and he should get it through that thick skull of his. As her words echoed in his ears, telling him to know his place, the phrases she had repeated to him over the years felt like a heavy curse. Yet even then, he couldn't help but yearn for a normal life. It was during the spring of his first year in high school when he found himself sitting at his desk at home, shortly after getting a text from Rua herself. She wanted him to meet her at the station the next day at 3 p.m. Meanwhile, Ya and some other friends had planned a karaoke outing and asked if he wanted to join. He assumed this Ya person was Hyagi Ayaka, the flashy girl from school he had never talked to. Confused, he wondered why she would want him of all people. It was as if he could hear his own thoughts, recalling something he had said about wanting friends, especially a girlfriend. This thought encouraged him, suggesting that joining an elite group like theirs could be the first step. His eyes sparkled with the possibility of change, and he really wanted it. He dressed as best as he could and even went to the barber for a fresh fade. Finally, the moment of truth arrived. Just as he was about to open the door, he thought about how he needed to become a new version of himself. But as soon as he stepped in, the room erupted in laughter, mocking him for actually showing up. They found it disgusting. They even made fun of his fade, saying he smelled like he just left the salon, and they were teasing him about his new jacket. Rua laughed the loudest, playfully telling them to stop, as he genuinely tried his best. Meanwhile, Arya, her friend, sat quietly, unimpressed. Kazuma stood there in silence, not saying a word. As he tried to block out the laughter, he realized it was all a setup. Rua got up and asked him what was wrong since he seemed so awkward. She encouraged him, even urging him to cry in front of everyone, claiming she had bet 10,000 yen that he would. Ignoring her, he whispered under his breath, asking her just one question. Had he done something wrong? Desperately desiring to know what exactly he had done to deserve this. And with that devilish smile of hers, she answered that it was obvious simply because he was her slave, urging him to go on, struggle to put on a good show for her. And then it happened. She finally admitted the truth that this whole time she couldn't stand the thought of him being her childhood friend. Kazuma's eyes widened as it felt like something just broke, as if chains were being snapped. He could finally hear the sounds of a bond being shattered. It was the last straw for him, and with those dead and soulless eyes, he looked right through her, mentioning that he felt the same, that they should cut ties, and she couldn't believe what she just heard. Infuriated, she asked him what exactly he thought he was saying. A loser such as himself shouldn't even be talking back to her, but Kazuma was right, as she was the one complaining after all. She continued her onslaught once more that he shouldn't mess with her as unlike him. She has every right to hate him, but Kazuma's done. He clenches his fist, and with a sudden explosion of rage, he slams it through the table, and almost as if it were nothing to him, he turns around facing the door in front of him, finally mentioning that it was settled. He closes the door behind him. Standing in shock, Rua's entourage talk about how lame Kua was and how she shouldn't worry about him. Meanwhile, her friend Ya made an astute observation, asking if Bro really broke the table. And as they gathered, they were all met with denial and disbelief that a human could possibly do such a thing? All while Rue stands afar off, shook with rage, unable to grasp how it was a piece of her confidence could be shattered by someone like him. And while standing in place, she screams that she'll never forgive him for breaking off their friendship. All while Kuma, on the other hand, thinks how refreshing that whole experience had been for him. As the world itself seems to be glowing, he wondered why he had always allowed her to control him this whole time, as he'd much rather face high school alone than sell his soul to a beast wearing human clothing. But deciding to move forward and no longer living in her shadow, Kazuma finally felt free. That same night, we get our first glimpse of the man pulling the strings behind the mighty Taikai group, Takayashiki Tao, and with a stern demeanor, he stares at the pages before him. But that all changes when Rua calls out to him from afar and his whole mood lightens up. She goes on to mention how Kuma has been mean to her today as he threatened to break off their friendship, but her statement catches the attention of the beauty standing idly in the room. Rua's cousin, Takayashiki Kikura, turns in disbelief, asking if what she had said was true. Rua confirms her suspicion by reiterating that she couldn't believe it herself, as she never once thought Kazuma would oppose her until now. Still not convinced, however, her cousin Kikura mentions that maybe she had been the one to say something nasty, with Rua casually admitting to calling him her slave, and yeah, maybe she also said being his childhood friend was the worst, but they had already figured that that was what had happened, as it's only natural for him to be upset after being told that. But Rua doubles down, insisting she was only teasing him. Jealousy bubbles to the surface as she confesses that it's infuriating to her to see Kasuma trying to make friends and looking for a girlfriend, as the whole thought to her is ridiculous. But Kika mentions that wanting more friends is actually pretty normal. But denying it all, Rua screams at the top of her lungs that it's not. After all, Kazuha always had her. The world's cutest Rua is always by his side. Yet just the thought of him wanting to get close to another girl is unbelievable. And because of that, she believed it's only natural that she'd want to tease him about it. As in the whole world, she's the only one who understands him the most. Because she loves him, and that's all Gramps needed to hear to switch sides, as he claims that it's indeed Kuma's fault. But Kikura seemed to have been the only one convinced Ro was wrong and nudged her to apologize. But she stubbornly rebuts that since her cousin was once Kuwa's mentor, she could figure something out and make things right by having him apologize and confess that he loves her. And while he's at it, to add a kiss as well. Kikura couldn't believe how darn bad she was and directed her focus towards her uncle, asking if he had intended for Kuma to marry Rua with him, confirming that he did, since that's exactly the reason he had her teach him martial arts, as well as the arts of leadership. Plus, Rua had liked him, and a talent such as himself was one of a kind. Gazing towards her fan, Kikura agreed, claiming that she's never seen anyone like him before, as ever since he was in elementary school, his grades have always been straight 3s graded out of 5, purposely scoring a little over average in order to fit in, as all of this was done as part of his training to become Rua's shadow. But if he were to ever stop and choose to aim higher, then not just the whole school or country would be shaken, but rather the whole world. And if our boy wasn't suffering from success already, well, turns out he was always popular with the girls, as she's not even able to count just how many had been transferred out because they liked him. And as a result of that, he never realized just how popular he was. Hearing this, Rua stands proud as she claims that that's her koa after all, while Chairman Takayashiki mentions that that's why he's a worthy candidate to take over his company. But Kika saw much further, since now that he's cut ties with Rua, he no longer needs to hold himself back, and she couldn't help but wait for the moment when everything would spiral out of control. And it started the very next day. The halls of the Tikai Academy buzzed with tension, and right in the center of the corridor sat a single desk and chair that belonged to Kazuma. The message was loud and clear. He went against Rua, and this was his punishment. Of course, the ultra-rich Harris would stoop this low just to prove how much of a cruel, spoiled human being she really was. Still, he didn't let it shake him. Instead, he calmly weighed his options. Option 1 was to drag the desk back to class and endure the ridicule. Or Option 2, complain to the staff. But it wouldn't have been worth it since the school literally belongs to her grandfather, chairman of the T Group. A school that cultivates S-class talent where elite students from across the nations are recruited under a scholarship program to become the best in sports, arts, and academics. You name it. If you excel, you don't pay a single yen. But make no mistake, because this place runs on a hierarchy, a real-life castle system complete with upper and lower ranks. And sitting at the very top of the throne, Rua, the self-proclaimed princess herself. So yeah, option 2 was out the window. Instead, Kuma does something no one expected. He grabs his pen and quickly scribbles a quick message on the paper taped on the chair. He stated that he'll be studying on his own, and since it was a direct message from Princess Roar herself, then they should please count him as present. Surprised by his 200 IQ play, the other students stood in shock as Kuma decides to head to another location, but also thought about how troublesome it would be if others found out about it. And upon his arrival, he reveals that it's an underground library that only he and a few others know about, as most students and some teachers are unaware that it even exists. But since he's a regular, the senior of the library committee lets him in sometimes. As he walks down the stairs toward the door, he thought about how he'd just killed time until classes were finished, thinking how he'd always wanted to live a normal life. But now that he's gone against Rua, he doesn't think he'll be able to make many friends or having a girlfriend for that matter. And as he grips the door handle, he wishes to now live quietly on his own. And opening the door before him, all he saw were yams. And it's in that moment that Kazuma had no idea about the story that was about to be unfold right before him, as his goal of seeking an ordinary life was now filled with extraordinary girls. And his days were now far from peaceful. Yo, if you enjoyed this episode, then don't forget to like and subscribe and comment what manga you'd like me to do next.